Welcome back to the Johnny Gets Cash channel and to the fifth part of my Daihatsu Fourtrak restoration. Last time you saw me refit the newly refurbished chassis with all new suspension components and bushes. In this episode I'll be servicing and cleaning up the original engine and gearbox before refitting them, along with the fuel system, brake lines, brakes and any other components in order to make this rolling chassis ready to receive the body. The last time you saw this engine and drivetrain was when I gave it a quick clean and removed it from the chassis just after I'd removed the Fourtrak's body in part 3. The engine from this Fourtrak was in good shape before this restoration, with no apparent faults or weaknesses, so the plan is to give it a thorough service, changing all wearable items as well as making it look a little better. The gearbox, however, wasn't in such great shape, struggling to shift from third to second, so to play it safe, I'll be sending that out to a specialist for a full strip down and rebuild. With the gearbox now away with the specialist, I can focus on the engine. First I stripped some ancillaries from the block so that I can begin the process of cleaning and making it look a little better. I'll be replacing the timing belt, tensioners, clutch, rear main seal and all auxiliary belts later in the process. Now it's time to start making things pretty. The engine block is treated to a coat of high temperature black, whilst the alloy heat shields are hit with the wire wheel before receiving a few coats of VHT silver. After that, it's now time to crack on with the best bit of any engine freshen up, the valve cover restoration. So then, as you can see, I now have the reconditioned original gearbox back from the specialist. It was a little bit clunky. We were having problems going from third to second, so it did need some attention, but it's been fully gone through by a specialist and it should be good for many, many miles to come. So the plan here is to reattach that to the reconditioned engine, which you can see just over my shoulder, get that back in the chassis, get everything ready, and then we can start focusing on the bodywork to drop the body back onto the chassis, and that is going to be quite a task. So for now, let's just focus on getting this back on the engine and then eventually getting that engine back into the chassis. So without any more delays, let's carry on and get that done. So I didn't actually film the process of reattaching the gearbox to the engine, as this is obviously just the reverse of what you saw me do earlier. But before refitting the gearbox, we did also fit a new XED clutch kit and a rear main seal. Now that the clutch and gearbox are as good as new, I just need to tidy it up a bit and make it look as good as the engine. Next up, I want to freshen up the fuel tank. Although it is totally leak free, it certainly looks a mess. So I'll give it a buzz with the descaler, followed by a healthy coating of rust converter, before finally protecting it with the same Gravitex coating that the chassis received. With the fresh looking tank now fitted, it's time to sort out the fuel lines. Here you can see the original solid sections of the fuel lines. One I've cleaned up and the other is as it was removed. These restored solid lines will be reused, however all rubber sections of the fuel line are replaced with brand new fuel hose. It's the same story with the metal section of the fuel line. As this is in great shape, I'll simply clean it up on the brass wheel and refit it with brand new rubber lines. Fuel lines done, it's now time to make new brake lines. Here I'm using 3/16 copper tube. addition to the new brake lines, the rear drums have been rebuilt and the front calipers will be changed. Unfortunately, the new calipers that had been sent were the wrong ones, so I'll need to wait for the correct ones and fit those later. And now for the big moment, time to refit the engine and gearbox into the chassis. With the chassis and drivetrain now looking so fresh, it'd be silly not to fit a brand new exhaust system. Because I've fitted a new cross member, I'll need to weld on some hangers in the appropriate places. And with that done, that brings part 5 of the Fourtrak restoration to a close. You may notice that the exhaust isn't mounted in these final shots. That's because I'm waiting on an exhaust clamp and some new exhaust studs. Once they're here, I can mount the exhaust finally. Also, the keen-eyed of you may have noticed the fan. When I got this Fourtrak, it had been converted to run on an electric manual fan. However, as part of this restoration, I'm reverting back to the standard viscous arrangement. This has been a big step forward. The engine has received a new timing belt, tensioners, water pump, rear main seal, auxiliary belts and an XED clutch kit. The gearbox has been sorted out by a specialist. The engine and gearbox have both had a bit of a facelift to match the fresh looking chassis, and the brakes and fuel system have been rebuilt. Next time, join me as I start the fight back against the Fourtrak's rusty body, and if you're not already a subscriber and you don't want to miss out on new episodes, make sure you subscribe today and turn notifications on. As always, thanks very much for watching and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.